Hi, I'm Scott, and this is the Old School Pixel Party, where we talk about everything to do with retro gaming. Hi there, retro gamers. Today we're going to talk about what you could consider to be the blockbuster or AAA games of yesteryear. We're talking about home versions of arcade games. In particular, we're going to talk about the ones that should be technically impossible. These things should not be, and yet they live. The thing is, in the olden days, some of the best games would come out in the arcades first, and then they would make their way over to the home consoles. Yep, times where if you wanted a game of Street Fighter 2, you had to leave your house. Maybe even get a bus. So, when everyone heard that it was coming over to the Super Nintendo, that was big news. That was the game you bought a Super Nintendo for. However, there were always sacrifices. There was quite a gap in hardware horsepower between the arcade games and the home console. So you were taking a game and squeezing it onto hardware that shouldn't really be able to support it. This meant that creating a good home version of an arcade game was an art form in itself. You saw a lot of technical innovation, a lot of creative programming, and a lot of sheer bloody mindedness involved in getting a game from the arcades to the living room. And in the spirit of that, we are going to look at the arcade ports that make you think, no fucking way. First up, Virtua Racing on the Mega Drive. Virtua Racing and later on Virtua Fighter were graphically stunning for the time, featuring full 3D models and full 3D environments. Were they the first to do this? Fuck no, not by a long shot. But the fact is, 3D had never looked this good before, and had never ran this smoothly. Graphically, it was as good as you got for the time, so when we found out there was going to be a port of Virtua Racing for the Sega Mega Drive, you had to wonder how the hell they thought they'd manage that. Well, they managed this with a chip embedded in the game cartridge itself called the Sega Virtua Processor. It was pretty much Sega's answer to Nintendo's Super Effects chip. And for 10-year-old me, the sight of a 16-bit console spewing out 3D visuals? Fucking amazing. Not only does it look like the arcade game, but it runs fast enough to feel like the arcade game. It might even be the most technologically advanced game on a 16-bit system. And nobody bought it. That might have something to do with it costing £70 at launch. I mean, can you imagine convincing your parents to buy that for you? Second up, Virtua Fighter 2 for the Mega Drive. I mentioned earlier that Virtua Fighter was one of the games that made 3D look good, and its sequel looked even better. It had more detailed characters, better backgrounds, sharper textures, so you gotta ask yourself, how in the name of holy hell could anyone fit this on the Mega Drive? Well, they didn't, but they kinda did. Virtua Fighter 2 for the Mega Drive was redone as a 2D fighter. Now, you might think that's a bit of a cop-out, but you'd be wrong. First of all, even in 2D, Virtua Fighter 2 looks amazing. The characters and the backgrounds are beautifully drawn. But, much more importantly, it still feels like Virtua Fighter 2 in the arcade. I mean, if you got good, really good, at the Mega Drive version, then you got your coat, got your bus, went to the arcade and started playing the arcade version of Virtua Fighter 2, you'd still be good. It was that close. So, just to recap, they built the game from the ground up in 2D and made it feel like exactly the same game. That's pretty cool. Next up, Mortal Kombat for the Sega Master System. Just to be clear, this isn't a comedy bootleg. This is an official, licensed, legitimate port of Mortal Kombat for the 8-bit Sega Master System. This came out in 1992, and by then, the 16-bit era was in full swing. 8-bit machines didn't get very many arcade ports. There was too much of a gap in power between arcade games and 8-bit systems, it simply couldn't be done. So, when it was announced that the Master System was getting a version of Mortal Kombat, that was exciting. Now, there are huge cuts, obviously. You only get 2 backgrounds and you can't go as Kano, but strangely and impossibly, it feels like Mortal Kombat. It doesn't look great and it's a little bit slow, but it's playable and recognisable as Mortal Kombat. I have no idea how they did this. This must have been some kind of fucking voodoo black magic shit. But they squeezed Mortal Kombat onto an 8-bit machine. And they gave it the blood that Nintendo didn't. So, there you have it. The arcade ports that should not be. If you've played any of these or you've got a favourite arcade port yourself, let me know in the comments below or on Twitter at L_Pinata. My favourite comment from the last vlog came from Suzanne Rush. Not only did she beat her mother's best time in Sonic 3, with a stunning 31 seconds might I add, she then used 31 as a chant to humiliate her mother over the course of 8 years with her entire family joining in. Which is heartwarming when you think about it. Speaking of heartwarming, if you could like and share this video and subscribe to the channel, you'd be doing me a massive favour. Also, if you find yourself over at Geek and Sundry vlogs, say hi to Mitch Hutz for me, and then watch his vlog because game references, and cocktails, and alcohol, and drunk. That's all for now, I'll see you in 2 weeks, and, as always, good work retro gamers, I'll most likely kill you in the morning.